I'm not gonna lie, this script has taken me a while to write. Been dealing with some things, and while it has been very helpful for me to write, it has taken a lot out of me, but I am, in the end, glad I wrote this. So, love and affection have always been pretty confusing concepts to me. It's not that I don't care about anyone or I have no one to care about, but I've always had a lot of trouble forming connections with people, and even when I have managed to form them, I've always had a lot of difficulty trying to maintain them. This has led to a long history of me being insecure about my relationships, and which led to me questioning whether or not I was a good person. I mean, everyone always talks about the proper ways to, care about people, and if I can't do that, if I can't show how I care about people in those ways, do I even really care about anyone to begin with? And it's through this line of thought that drove me to be like everyone around me. I spent a lot of my youth observing everyone and everything, trying to figure out what I need to replicate from other people's behavior, and try to do what was necessary to be accepted by other people. And this worked. Kinda. I was eventually liked. I was invited to gatherings. People went out of the way to talk to me. They were no longer giving me the stare whenever I was around them. It was everything I wanted, everything I longed for, everything I worked for. But I was still so fucking miserable. Everything felt stressful all the time. I was worrying and overlooking into every little thing I or someone else was doing. It just, I could never relax. If I broke the mask, the character, for even a single second, people would automatically look through everything that was wrong with me. Now, why am I talking about this? Why am I spilling my guts out to you? Well, as you're probably able to figure out, today's topic, Doughnuts Under a Crescent Moon by Shio Usui, delves into themes very similar to my own experiences. Now, spoilers for the series, I highly recommend reading it, then coming back to this. The series focuses on Uno Hinako, an office worker at a... I honestly don't know what kind of company. They don't... Honestly, in series like this, half the time, they don't really say what it is. Now, Hinako is a relatively normal person, or at least that's what she is trying to be, what she's trying to perform. She's decent enough at her job without, while making a couple mistakes here and there. She's really into fashion and makeup. She goes out to lunch with her friends from work. She often goes out on dates with guys looking for a suitable partner. And she generally doesn't stick out too much, and that's what she wants. This is her goal. But she is still fucking miserable. Her apartment's a mess, and she doesn't have the motivation to clean it half the time. Haha. She has issues with money because of her spending habits, with going out with her friends for food so often, or buying the newest clothes or cosmetics. She has a stressful relationship with her mom, not feeling like she's living up to her mother's expectations. And she, even though she doesn't hate any of the guys that she goes out with, she struggles to connect with any of them, leading to none of these relationships working out. And she feels particularly uncomfortable with the thought of being intimate with them whenever the idea of kissing or hugging or stepping on the good foot and doing the bad thing comes up. She feels sick to her stomach and tries to avoid it. And she just continues this pattern, this lifestyle, until one night, after turning down yet another guy, she just breaks down, crying in the street, believing she's broken and defective. As she quietly cries out for help, desperate for just anything. And that's when, fortunately for her mental health and unfortunately for her pride, her work senior Satu Asai is right next to her eating a donut.
You get it? It's the name of the series. It's the title, the Doughnuts and the Moon.
Now, Asai gives Hinako a donut, better person than I am, and they sit on a bench snacking and talking for a bit. Asahi talks about her frustrations with work and her coping mechanism of donuts, and Hinako is surprised by this, as she always thought of Asahi as a competent, independent person that didn't really make any mistakes. Asahi compliments Hinako's work, making up for a mistake that she made that day, which Hinako thought no one would notice. And Asahi ends the conversation by saying she was surprised to see Hinako crying on the street, as she always thought of Hinako as a very confident, sure of herself person. Asahi tells her that they are more similar to each other than they originally thought, and there's nothing wrong with taking a break if you're feeling overwhelmed. And then they just comfortably finish their donuts in peace with each other. Hinako approaches the next day with a brighter attitude, resolving to do what she needs to do to be happy and hopefully be worthy of falling in love one day. And she goes to work, and she goes to say hi to Asahi when she notices her heart skips a beat. Whatever could this mean? And honestly, as much as I love the series, the first half of it plays out as you would expect for a queer narrative. It's still great, I love it, but it doesn't really do anything to surprise me. It mainly follows Hinako as she tries to make improvements to her daily habits. She starts cooking for herself instead of going out all the time to help with her finances. She cleans up and maintains her apartment. She starts paying more attention and tries a bit harder at her job. And she tries establishing a bit more independence from her friend group, trying to find more comfort in the solitude. And during all this, she is growing a lot closer to Asahi. They start talking to each other more often in and out of work. They start sharing their lunch breaks together. They start walking home together. Hinako eventually meets Asahi's younger sister, and they all start having dinner together regularly. And during all this, they continue to move past any other misconceptions they had about the other, as they develop a real deep, intimate understanding of each other. This leads to them feeling a sense of comfort with each other, creating a safe space for them. This is honestly very heartwarming to see. All the characters are pretty well defined. Their interactions with each other are always realistic and are always trying to explore different aspects of themselves, as trying to explore how they are different or similar as they are to kind of everyone else going on. Like I said, pretty standard for this kind of story. Well, there is one scene in the first half that kind of took me by surprise. One night at some point in Volume 2, Hinako goes out to a group dinner with some of her coworkers. Now, her friends are trying to set up with a guy there. She doesn't feel entirely comfortable with this, but she has trouble speaking up about it, or she doesn't want to make something out of it. Throughout the dinner, everyone is trying to set her up with this guy, trying to get them to talk and start a conversation, but nothing is really working. The guy is asked what he likes to do in his free time, and he says he enjoys going solo camping. As someone who enjoys doing hikes by themselves, I completely understand this. And then everyone gets really weird about it. They start grilling him on it, questioning why he enjoys going by himself. And you can see how uncomfortable it makes him, but again, he doesn't say anything, he just kind of takes it. And that's when Hinako unexpectedly speaks up, saying there's nothing wrong with being by themselves. If someone doesn't want to do something with other people, they don't have to force themselves. And that's not really something you hear all too often. Now, let me pitch you a story idea. An introverted person who doesn't have a lot of friends until they meet a special someone and they learn to open up and make a bunch of friends. I'm going to guess that you're able to think of at least one story like that. And if you did, please let me know in the comments. Now, this isn't an inherently bad thing. A lot of people do keep themselves closed off from others, making it to where they have trouble developing as a person, and it is important to be able to open up. But there's always a very specific way that this is shown. The introvert goes to parties now. They're always accompanied by at least 2 people. They're always calling or texting people. And which each of these are good for some people, but to someone like me, that sounds like absolute hell. I like having people to talk to, but I don't need to talk to them every single day. I like doing some things with others, but I have plenty of other things I would prefer just doing by myself. And I could go to like big social gatherings sometimes, every once in a while, but constantly that would just that would just kill me. And am I wrong? And then I have to wonder if I'm wrong for that. Because if I look at most media or how a lot of people talk to me about their expectations with relationships or people in their lives, yeah, I'm doing something wrong. But the thing I had to realize is I just don't feel comfortable trying to fit that. I mean, I tried, it didn't really work for me. And this series has a moment saying that it's okay. Nothing wrong with that. And this is genuinely, out of everything I've seen, read, or watched, that has said that. And that means so much to me. And I thought that was all I was going to get out of the series. Now, what was a really subversive, surprising moment was then followed by an extremely cliched plot development. Now, at this point in the story, Hinako has realized that she feels something for Asahi, but is not quite sure what this feeling is. And with the tension kind of growing more and more palpable, she thinks she wants to try making another step to try to figure out what this feeling is. And at that moment, Asahi's childhood friend, Fuka Yokoyama, comes back into the picture. And get this, she's secretly been in love with Asahi since they were teenagers. Yeah! If this series wasn't as well written as it was, this would have sucked. But then I was hit with yet another thing that I wasn't really expecting. This section of the series is a real tennis ball match. So after one night, after everyone has dinner together, Hinako and Fuko are walking back to their places when Fuko comes out to Hinako as gay and about her feelings for Asahi. She also helps Hinako realize her romantic feelings for Asahi. But when Hinako asks Fuko what it's like to be in love with someone, Fuko talks about wanting to hold someone, wanting to kiss them, wanting to be intimate. But Hinako has never had those thoughts towards Asahi. And when she's laying in bed later that night, she tries to imagine it. She tries to think about kissing Asahi, hugging her, and that part. But she still feels uncomfortable. She still feels grossed out. This part still doesn't work out for her. But she's sure that she loves Asahi, or the fact that she's, or maybe not figuring out this is love, but she has never felt this way towards anyone else. But she still isn't getting this last part. And let me tell you, this development hit me like a ton of bricks. Now, bit of a kind of side thing, quick lesson. Asexuality, which I happen to be asexual, is an extremely varied experience with many different attitudes and relationships towards sex. Some asexuals are sex positive and enjoy having sex with other people. Some are sex neutral, not really caring about it one way or the other. I tend to fall into this most of the time. Some are sex repulsed, being absolutely disgusted by the idea of having sex or doing stuff like that with people. Some are demisexual, can only be sexually attracted to someone that they've formed like an intimate emotional bond with. Some are gray sexual and may experience occasional attraction. Fair amount are aromantic as well, not really being romantically attracted to other people. And all of these are valid. None of them like cancels out the other. These all exist to each other, and there's really to show there's not a correct way to be ace, to exist like this. And honestly, in most media I've seen, I've not seen asexuality presented in a way or represented in a manner that isn't usually just a punchline. I mean, admittedly, being ace in a fairly sexual world in society is honestly, it's a funny experience. There's a lot of comedy in that. But constantly seeing it as the punchline or something to be made fun of gets just a tiny bit old after a while. Or it's a side character that is shown to be weird or kind of showing off their nerdiness by not being interested in other people, or the person who is put off by sex eventually meeting the right person and they do it by the end. Like, cool, I guess. And in all honesty, even with that kind of last big reveal with Hinako, I was expecting this story to go that final route. That this wasn't a character flaw. This was something that needed to be worked through, and it would be overcome by the end of this with finally having the right person. And then I get surprised yet again. She doesn't change from this. By the end of the series, she still feels the same way. But she still chooses to call it love. And even if it's not in the same way that most people do it, it is still love. And I really needed to hear that. And finally, we get to the end of the series. There's a few other things that happen between like that last big plot point and the end, but they're not the most relevant to what I'm trying to talk about, so I'm not going to be going over them. This video is not a replacement for reading the series. Please go read it. And with, like most romance series, we end on the big confession. And I must say, this scene is absolutely adorable. I love it. It's cute, it's awkward, it's tender. They tell each other that they enjoy being together and they feel like they can be their best selves around each other. How everything just feels comfortable and right with each other. And then I get surprised one more time. Now, Pinako wants this relationship to last. She doesn't want it to go the same way that all of her other potential ones did. So she comes out to Asahi about not wanting or desiring kisses or sex or anything like that. She's nervous while trying to explain the entire thing. She's thinking I didn't explain it properly, or she's just going to weird Asahi out. But Asahi just accepts it. Doesn't press about the why, doesn't say, oh, I'll wait till you're ready, or she just says, okay, that's fine. Doesn't bother me. I really hope if I ever start dating someone, my coming out about this, if necessary, goes this well. So, yeah, the series doesn't reinvent the wheel. It doesn't change the way I view the world or life or philosophy or anything like that. But in its small moments, the tiny little subversions, it does a lot to make me feel seen. That I'm not inherently wrong for the way I exist with other people. That I can find someone who's okay with me. Now, this is not one of my all-time favorite series, but this is definitely one of the most important ones to me. Now, I remember the first time I read this series. It was on a site that had comments on it. I sometimes enjoy seeing what other people have to say about stuff, unless they're dumb, which a lot of people are dumb, but I remember getting to the end, to that final chapter, to the big confession, and someone in the comments asked what really changed about their relationship, that they were basically still just friends, and this stuck with me. I thought about it for a while. It's something I have been thinking about for a long time, but what was different? What's really the difference between a friend and a significant other? What standards are we going off? And eventually, I found an answer. It's not an answer that works for everyone, but it's what I found works for me. A relationship is decided by what the people in it decide. Some lovers kind of feel like family to each other. Some soulmates are just friends. Sometimes a partner is just a partner. For Hinako and Asahi, they decided it was love, so it was love. So, yeah, I think I'll just decide what I have with the people around me. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that.